Everyone, this is Peter Krauth. I'm editor of the Silver Stock Investor Newsletter, and I'm here today with Chris Paul, who is CEO of Hercules Silver. Chris, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Peter.
So, Chris, tell me, your company shares are up an amazing 200% since last fall. People are excited, and I'd like to know if you can tell us about Hercules. What is it that's gotten the market so excited?
Yeah, so I would say the big one for sure is obviously the silver content. Peter, you and I have kind of discussed before, how much the silver actually plays into the overall value of the metal because there's a lot of silver companies out there, there's a lot of silver projects out there that really aren't primary silver, but they market themselves that way. But in reality, there's a lot of lead zinc, there's a lot of copper. Silver is quite often a byproduct, metal in most projects. The thing that differentiates Hercules is the silver is about 75% of the value here. So I mean that is something that's very rare. You'd be hard pressed to find many other juniors in a safe jurisdiction like the United States. Especially Idaho, which is a very mining friendly state. And the other, really good thing that we've got going for us most other juniors do not have in the U.S. is, about more than half of our land position, we own the grandfathered mining rights to. So that means that we can basically build road, we can build drill pads, and we can do lots of things without needing to permit. So that's, a few kind of major advantages that we have over, your typical silver junior out there.
Excellent. So Chris, tell me, you're launching, or you've just gotten started on your phase 2 drilling program, and you're focused on 4 main targets. Which ones are the ones that you're most excited about?
Very tough question to answer. It's like picking your favorite kid. So,
Exactly.
you know, the silver lead zinc, I would say, that we've kind of got this historical resource area. So that's our low hanging fruit, and that's our bread and butter. That's great. That's the lowest risk we're going after. We've got a deep chargeability anomaly at depth that's obviously really exciting. I think that's going to pan out to be, potentially semi-massive or massive sulfide. But what's really kind of interesting is this copper porphyry target that we've drummed up. And that's kind of the culmination of about 2 years of really extensive greenfields work that we've done, right? So we started with soil sampling. We did another round of soil sampling. We mapped it. We took about 1,000 rock samples. We got alteration data. So we did geophysics. We took all this data and we modeled it in 3D, and we've come up with this really solid concept. And that being that this whole thing, like all the silver lead zinc that was drilled off historically, over 300 holes, that was all being driven by essential copper porphyry. And there's just a ton of evidence for it. So for me, the most exciting target is going to be finally getting to test that. You've never had any drilling ever. You've really never had any exploration at all in that target historically. So to go in, and test this kind of brand new, conceptual model, that to me is going to be, very, very rewarding, I think. Should we hit a really big hole, a really big copper hole in that zone.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be an exciting summer. Tell me, Chris, you raised about 5.75 million. It was an oversubscribed private placement not all that long ago. And then on top of that, you got an additional 1.3 million from the exercise of options and warrants. So right now your coffers are full. Besides upsizing this phase 2 drill program, what else do you see yourself allocating cash towards?
I mean, to be honest with you, Peter, like there's really not a lot of other things that I do want to allocate that cash to. Um, there's other than GNA, there's a small drone mag survey that we're planning to do. That's going to cost about 50 grand. But the way I see it is, the most amount of value you can create for any project is going to come through the drill bit. There's not many other things you can do in terms of exploration that the market's really going to reward. So really what I want to see us do is we drill this 6,000 meter phase 2 program, take a bit of a pause, we're going to get all these assays, get all these samples off to the lab. We're going to get assays back, and we're going to have, a good amount of money left over after that program. So what that means is, we're going to be putting out these phase 2 results, and, people are going to have to buy the stock in the market, because we're not going to have to go back to the market for more capital at that stage. We're going to be able to execute a third phase of drilling after that, after we put out, the results from this next phase. And so, if new investors want to get involved, they're going to have to go to the market, and they're going to have to buy in the market. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way, we've kind of decided that we're going to create the most amount of value for the company, is just continuing to drill and continuing to grow the mineralization that was already found back in the 80s, and several of these new targets that I think are going to pan out for us this summer.
Excellent. Thanks. So, Chris, now I'm going to give finally my reasons for being so bullish on Hercules. You did mention this up front. You're in a great jurisdiction. Idaho is an excellent place to be operating. And, I just want viewers to know too, this is where a lot of silver has been found and mined historically. The historic drilling that you have that goes back to from the 60s all the way up to the 80s, that suggests to me that there could really be, at least in my view, an elephant of a deposit under there. You have these wide intercepts, 300 grams per ton, 400 grams per ton, and even up to almost 1.4 kilos of silver per ton of silver. And then you have your maiden drilling that produced these wide intercepts, 487 grams per ton silver equivalent with high-grade silver. And then the kicker for me is that recent exploration really suggests that the strike length could go from 3.5 to up to 5.5 kilometers. So I really think that, the potential is there. It is something that is, as you say, a rarity, and you're in a great place to be able to develop this. And I just think overall Hercules has really all the ingredients to become a big silver and with some base metals, but mainly a silver deposit that's located in a great place where you can build a mine. And that's really not that common these days. So, Chris, I'd like to wrap up. I've got one more question for you. What's your long-term vision for Hercules Silver? How do you plan on achieving that?
Yeah, so the long-term vision, is basically to continue to grow what's there. So, as I mentioned earlier, we've got that historical resource. The plan is to grow that in all directions. That is open along strike. That is open at depth. We've got several other new targets that we're going to be testing as well. So, the long-term goal is to continue to grow the mineralization and position the company to be bought out, in the next, roughly call it 2 to 3 years from now, something along that kind of line, time frame. We're in Idaho, and we're obviously a silver focused junior. There's 2 other silver majors in Idaho. We've got Coeur Mining, and we've got Hecla. I mean, those would be 2 very obvious potential candidates. Should we build a large silver resource here at the project? They know how to operate in Idaho. They understand the geology. They're familiar with it. So I see getting bought out, getting taken over as the greatest value creation that we can do for our shareholders, and that's really where we're focused.
Well, that was a fantastic overview. I mean, I have to say it's really hard to be, from my perspective, more bullish on a silver story and a silver opportunity. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out today to give us your insights, and look forward to doing this again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Peter.
Pleasure. Thanks, Chris.